it's a positive film. It has heroes and villains, and that it essentially is a fun movie to watch. It's been a long time since people have been able to go to the movies and see a sort of straightforward, wholesome, fun adventure.
Well, it's a fantasy. It's not science fiction so much as it is space fantasy. And it's about people. It's finally about people and not finally about science.
The story, when you actually put it into words, is only so much nonsense to hang a great visual experience onto. It's the stuff that fairy tales are made of.
Sort of boiling down religion into a very basic concept. The fact that there is some deity or some power or some force that sort of controls our destiny works for good and also works for evil.
Marvelous, healthy innocence. Great pace, wonderful to look at, full of guts, nothing unpleasant. I mean, people go bang bang and people fall over and are dead, but, no horrors. A sort of wonderful freshness about it, kind of like a wonderful fresh air.
It's got whatever you want it to be. It's pure entertainment. It's like a roller coaster ride, and it can be interpreted as long as you enjoy it, which is the intention.
Hello, welcome back to Generation Skywalker and continuation of Attack of the Clones Anniversary Month. And tonight we are looking at the art of Attack of the Clones. And joining me tonight is Craig Spivey. Good evening, Craig.
Good evening.
And Jez. Good evening, Jez.
Good evening.
So we're a little three-man band tonight. Anyone who's joining this show for the first time, we are doing an Attack of the Clones Anniversary Month. It's 20 years this month. There has been 2 or 3 shows previous to this. Go back, get involved, and give us your opinions on Attack of the Clones and everything we discuss. So, the art of Attack of the Clones. Jez, I'm going to come over to you. What have we got coming up on this show?
Mate, I'm so glad you've decided to do this, and I'm so glad that you've asked me to join, because it's been a real treat, actually, looking at this. And as we've gone through Attack of the Clones, I've enjoyed it more and more and more. And what we're uncovering and remembering and some of the nostalgia. So key things tonight, I think, are just looking back at some of the good times, some of the really good times, some of the nostalgia, some of the marketing. We'll be asking ourselves, was this a good idea? Was this clever marketing? Or was that a bit of an own goal? And more on own goals and football later on, I suppose. And I'm not sure whether or not you'll be aware of that bit. So there's going to be some tidbits. There's going to be some surprises. We're going to be looking at the key marketing campaign which came out of Lucasfilm. And then we'll be going through some sort of fan art and other commissions, which you'll see at the Star Wars Celebration show. And who knows what treats will be in store. So, mate, thanks ever so much for putting this together. I'm really looking forward to what we're going to cover in the next hour or so.
Hour or so. I've heard you boys talk. I think it might go on.
Yeah, all right then. Let's say 2 hours. It'll be a great show. Looking forward to it.
But boys, before we get started then, I know both of you found an article on the Wall Street Journal which gave us some fascinating insights. Who's going to take us through that?
Yeah, well, I've got it here. And as you say, it's from the Wall Street Journal. It's dated May the 14th, 2002. And it's reported by the name of John Lippman talking to Jim Ward, who was the vice president of marketing at Lucasfilm. And it's headed, "The newest Star Wars film tries quiet, steady marketing." It does give us a bit of interesting context about what we're about to discuss, really, when it comes to sort of how the film was promoted. So I'm going to read a couple of chunks out, if you bear with me. So he says, nevertheless, for episode 2, Lucasfilm wanted to be very focused on a specific audience, namely kids and core Star Wars junkies. Lucasfilm is also targeting teenage girls and women because of the movie's romance theme, audiences not normally associated with Star Wars. So Lucasfilm enlisted only 2 major promotional partners, General Mills for cereals, fruit snacks and Go-Gurt product, and PepsiCo's Frito-Lay for salty snacks. The best way to focus on kids is with that cereal box sitting on the kitchen table and that bag of potato chips sitting on the shelf, explains the Lucasfilm marketing executive. Core fans can be reached through the internet and the Star Wars convention circuit. Women and teenage girls are targeted by TV advertising and traditional media. Of all of Hollywood's event and franchise movies this summer, Episode 2 is estimated by outsiders to be spending under $25 million in advertising, less than it normally would to be spending on such a movie, and that's by design. Awareness isn't our problem with this film, says Jim Ward, Vice President of Marketing. Therefore, a tonnage strategy isn't necessarily the right thing to do. It's a pullback for Lucasfilm, which marketed the previous Star Wars movie, Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, much more aggressively. Phantom Menace, although it hit $431 million at the US box office and was an unqualified commercial success, left many of George Lucas's fans cold. There were also many Phantom Menace products left unsold on retailer shelves, in part because of the glut of tie-in products. Lucasfilm is banking on the notion that its Star Wars franchise is so thoroughly seeped into the culture that it can get away with a more passive marketing effort. So it's a good article. We'll put some of it on the Enhanced so you can read it in full. But I think what it tells us is that they were doing a lot less, so that the posters and the visual marketing that we're about to discuss, there was a lot riding on it. And also the tone of it, if you consider how some of this was trying to appeal to women and teenage girls, very different to how we've seen Star Wars films marketed in the past.
The article which you read from, is that the one where if director George Lucas was to name the marketing strategy for Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, he might dub it The Empire Lays Back? Is that the same one?
It is the same one, yeah.
What do you know about Jar Jar's Great Adventure? Are you familiar with that?
This was the working title
That's right.
of the movie, which was a bit of a swipe at the critics, wasn't it? Or the fans.
Right,
yeah.
So Mr. Best, who was the voice actor of Jar Jar, said that, it was the working title initially, Jar Jar's Great Adventure. It was pretty much a middle finger to the whole everyone hates Jar Jar thing. So what you've got, certain aspects of Episode 1 we don't like. Okay, rather than sort of recognise that, what we're going to do is put the middle finger up and antagonise people. We're also going to go marketing a completely different way now, and we're going to try and focus in this area, and we're going to hold back over here. Alarm bells ringing slightly in my mind, but I'm not a marketing director with a budget of $25 million. But there were some aspects, and we'll come on to this, of the marketing strategy, where it's actually quite clever. And we'll come on to later on, because as part of this journey, I looked at that and I thought, very good.
Let's get into it then, because there is a lot to discuss tonight with this, and we'll probably only scrape the top level of it. But the teaser for me, for The Phantom Menace, is one of the most iconic images that came out of the prequels. That young, innocent looking lad with Vader's shadow up that rock face. I mean, it was brilliant. I had it on my bedroom wall. I've still got it. I think I've now got it probably 3 or 4 times in different, formats. Such a good image. So, Jez, we then have the teaser for Attack of the Clones. Did it have that same kind of impact and punch as that?
For me, it really didn't. So this was a concept created by the art director Greg Bell and the copywriter Paul Venables. And now what we had here was side profile of Anakin Skywalker and Padme. Anakin with a lit lightsaber. So they've got their backs to each other, and Anakin is looking serious. But this is a theme in all of the posters. He's not looking like someone who's necessarily in love, or he's not looking like someone who's having a good day. He's just very, very serious. And Padme is looking sad. You could almost take it in Return of the Jedi when Luke says to Leia, have you got any memories of your mother?
Do you remember your mother? Your real mother?
Just a little bit. She died when I was very young.
What do you remember?
Just images, really. Feelings.
Tell me.
She was very beautiful. Kind. But sad. Why are you asking me this?
She's looking down, she's looking forlorn. In fact, she has her hairstyle, which it got buns a little bit associated with Carrie Fisher's character. So these two are there with their back to each other, and there's a sort of red hue over them, but it's the text. It's the text which we've got with this, which is on the poster itself. A Jedi shall not know anger, nor hatred, nor love. But I tell you what, you've got to get pretty close to that poster to see that. It's what we're looking at here. This is the first time we've seen Hayden Christensen is this character. So it's not an iconic, straight away as soon as you see it, right, that's future Darth Vader. You know, we're not looking at someone, we're not looking at Spider-Man or someone who's instantly recognisable. We're looking at a character who we don't know. However, there's this lit thing coming up which almost, I'm pretty convinced that's a lightsaber. Might not be. And then we've got, that lady who I recognise from Star Wars Episode 1. She looks a bit different there, but I've got to get really, really close to see the text. As far as teasers go, I'd walk past that. From a marketing point of view, you want people, as they've just seen their latest Bond film or indie or what have you, and they're just leaving the cinema, that's where they want to see these teasers. You know, that's where they want to see it. So this came out on November the 16th, 2001 in US theatres. And as I said, it was the first look. It didn't really flick switch for me. Not starting off on a positive there, fellas.
Master Kenobi, you disappoint me. Yoda holds you in such high esteem. Surely you can do better.
Like Stuart says, it was a tough act to follow, that episode 1 teaser. And it doesn't attempt to use that very clever visual. They tried to do it again with Revenge of the Sith, less successfully. But there's not a huge visual concept behind this poster. You know, you just mentioned Anakin, I guess. Other things you can decode from that, it's side profile, so you can see he's got the same Padawan haircut that Obi-Wan had in the first film. You can see the ponytail and the braid, so I guess it's got that going for it. But he's in his peasant disguise. It's not giving any Jedi-ness away. And Padme's in the dress she wore in the picnic scene. To me, it feels very spiritually connected to the tone poems that they did for episode 1. So those, I think there were TV spots. They might have made some print executions, but they were used with specific characters and a few words that kind of enigmatically portrayed their point of view and their motivations as different characters in the film. So it feels very much like that, like it's part of that kind of concept.
There are things I cannot do. I cannot watch while people suffer. I cannot sit when something must be done. I cannot judge those who are different. There are things I cannot do. Run, hide, ignore. There are things I cannot do, but there are certainly things I will do.
But it's not brilliant. It's not a great teaser. It's quite subtle, I think, in its execution, in its presence. Like you say, it's not hitting anyone between the eyes. It's obviously focusing on the love story, and we've established that was going to be a main thread of the marketing. So I guess it follows that thinking, but I don't imagine it's anyone's favourite Star Wars poster.
Okay, interesting.
Well, what are your thoughts, though, Stu? I mean,
it doesn't punch to me like that. Obviously, the Forbidden Love's pretty highlighted. They're back to back. But yeah, you're right. It's just a bit meh, isn't it? It doesn't excite you. But then when we cover the trailers, the Love trailer, I mean, you boys loved it, but for me, it was a bit meh as well.
I know that from a teaser, we want it to be simple, don't we? You want simplicity, and it was a hard act to follow with that first one, which was very bright. It was daylight, and the use of the shadow was very clever. We're going to come on to Drew Struzan, but of his entire sort of catalogue, he did The Thing, and that is a fairly simple poster. So, Drew didn't need to be an artist who would go into lots of detail, lots of characters, action, all sorts of stuff, telling his version of that story, his appreciation of that story. The Thing is just a guy in a big parka with a lot of light coming out of the face. And that's The Thing, iconic poster. I am sure that if they wanted to, they could have come up with something better. This whole hanging your hat on the love element It just didn't say Star Wars.
Okay, Craig, you're a designer. If you'd come into a meeting, what would you instantly think of as a teaser for Attack of the Clones, having watched the movie? Other than that.
Well, I mean, their brief was this love story, wasn't it? And anyone who's been paying attention knows that character on that poster is going to turn into Darth Vader. So I think that's intriguing, this idea that this doomed love is going to go down that direction. So it's already imbued with a bit of lore, and it's probably relying on that, to be fair. What would I tease for Attack of the Clones? Well, there's no clones in it, is there?
No.
It's very clear to me that this campaign had a direction, and it almost, as we discussed these, course corrects a little bit. So this poster, the one we're going to talk about next, they're dialing up that romance and that ennui of these doomed lovers. Are there better ways to portray it? Would you explore something that used that beautiful foreshadowing of the Phantom Menace poster? Yeah, you probably would, and they probably did. This is very safe in some respects. The design of it is not that interesting. It's of its time. The Photoshop work is a little bit naive, and we'll talk about that a bit more with some of the other work. I see how it got signed off against the brief that we know it was done against, and it's kind of why I was keen to read some of those bits of that article out at the start, because it does really alter how I viewed these, just knowing that information.
Yeah, I get that.
Do you think, looking at that teaser and squinting your eyes slightly, you could be looking at those two through Vader's eyes? Or not? Is my imagination going too far with me? Because it's dark at the bottom and dark at the top, and sort of dark in the middle slightly. It could almost be, Anakin's his left eye, Padme's his right eye, and this is looking at the future, or this is looking through Darth Vader's eyes. Or maybe I just need to lie down.
I think it's just rubbish glows in Photoshop.
Okay.
Right. Well, on that, let's move on to the movie posters, the things that get people in the cinemas. I mean, Star Wars is quite fortunate. It doesn't have to do that for quite a big part of their audience. Two posters I wanted you boys to look at, and that is the release for the US and, of course, the British quad. Now, first of all, Craig, why is ours a quad? Why do we do that in this country?
Because our poster frames are set up differently to those in America. They're just traditionally landscape formats. I guess they echo the format of cinema itself a little bit more. I think we're probably a little bit biased because all of our emotional resonance with these things are formed in the queues at cinemas in our youth. But, I've got a soft spot for quads. I think from a design point of view, they do give you a nice clean area for text. If you compare these two side by side, you've not got a lot of small print kind of mushing into the image. It's all neatly over to one side. Tends to be how a US one sheet is translated to a quad. It'll be, the main image will be over on one side and everything else on the other.
Wonderful. Right, before we get into then the design of the poster, the artist Drew Struzan, you've both already mentioned him in the introduction and talking about the teaser. What can you tell me about Drew Struzan, his connection to Star Wars and his other work?
Do you know what? I found this video, and rather than me talk right now, I think we just need to listen to a couple of little one-liners from a variety of people on how massive, how influential Drew Struzan is.
There is one artist for every couple of decades that encapsulates what film experience was for a couple of generations. And I think for my generation and the generation right before me, Drew Struzan was the movies.
There's images that Drew has drawn that are burned in my brain forever. They'll never go away.
His posters are modern-day classics. That's not an opinion, it's a statement of fact.
It's not just an ad, it's the first notes of the piece. It's the beginning of the story.
His artistic interpretation of what that story is in one image really made you want to run out and see that movie.
He is a storyteller, and that's what makes him very, very unique and ranks him with the great poster artists of all time.
And when you're talking about the best of the best, you've got Drew sitting right up there with those guys.
He's one of the first artists who's become a pop star, a rock star.
Myself and my other artist friends, we would just drool over his stuff.
And it just got your attention. It's like, wow, I want to go to that place. I want to be there. I want to be in that light. I want to be whatever makes you look like that. I want that shit around me.
You anticipate the new poster from Drew.
Almost anybody who's anybody in the film business wants him to do posters for them.
He's been such a benefit and such a kind of second sight to a lot of my films everyone, arguably worldwide, knows his work. They may not know his name, but everyone's seen his movie posters.
He did the Back to the Future series. You know, Drew did Goonies for me. He did Hook. He did Batteries Not Included. You know, Drew really, came along for the long ride of the Amblin years and just made a tremendous contribution.
He does just a great, great job of bringing out the best in whatever it is that he's painting.
I had to almost live up to the art that we later were going to ask Drew to create for the poster.
He will inevitably influence every artist that comes afterward.
I'm a big fan of Drew Struzan.
It's beautiful work.
It's just great work, and there's only one. He's one of a kind.
Nobody else is Drew Struzan, I promise you.
There is nobody else like him.
He's the best.
He's a legend.
He's an original.
He's amazing.
He's part of the movie experience.
Having a Drew Struzan do your poster is almost worth making movies just for that.
Drew Struzan is part of our growing up. He is our generational poster designer. And it was Drew who came back again and did episode 2, Attack of the Clones, primary poster.
Yes, so some great quotes there, and a lot of them taken from a great documentary called Drew, the Man Behind the Poster, which is probably still kicking around on your Skybox, and I think you could probably watch it on YouTube, but really, really worth watching, and you just get an impression of the guy and how humble he is, but there are insights into his work and his technique. You know, he works very traditionally with mixed media. His work has got so much life behind it, so if you do have the opportunity to check that out, please do. When he did the Attack of the Clones poster, he wasn't new to Star Wars by any stretch of the imagination. He'd done the 3 special edition posters that were all designed to stem from a single vanishing point. So the Empire Strikes Back had the vanishing point, the other 2 radiated out from it. It was a great piece of work, and he'd obviously done the main B poster for The Phantom Menace. But if you've been listening along to Generation Skywalker for a couple of years, you'll remember him from our knockout competition when we looked at lots of the book covers from the Legends era. So he was responsible for a number of really, really cool book covers that appeared on Star Wars spin-off novels.
Okay, so clearly a wonderful, wonderful artist. So, Craig, take me through these 2 posters.
Okay, so not unlike the teaser poster, the romance is dialed right up. As you've got Anakin and Padme, not in an embrace. She's sort of kind of nestled in his shoulder, looking very much in love as the main dominant image. You've got Obi-Wan there, who we're establishing as a hero of the piece. We've got Jango Fett, who everybody knew Boba at this point, but they'd not met Jango. So we've got that Mandalorian armor there, quite big and central. And you've got Mace Windu, smaller, and the droids, and an action scene with Yoda looking over the explosions and what is effectively the attack of the clones. Type-wise, and this is interesting, Episode 2 is the biggest type on the poster. You know, they'd marketed The Phantom Menace very much as Episode 1, and it's interesting to see Episode 2 this big, because I think by this point I was certainly calling it Attack of the Clones and less Episode 2. Don't know if anyone else had the same view at the time. It just that seemed to be very secondary. We kind of knew where we were in the sequence at this point, but maybe that's for new people. I don't know.
Now you've pointed that out, I can't unsee it. You're absolutely right. Star Wars is tardy, Attack of the Clones tardy, Episode 2. Really, yeah. Cheers for that. Just to add to your description, which I think you've covered it brilliantly. There's huge dollops of lens flare chucked in there as well, but I'm also getting slightly behind that with the lens flare, a sort of binary sunset behind the 2 lovers. That's my interpretation of it coming out, but I really like it, actually. This ticks the box for me. I like this. I don't know what others think, and we'll come on to it, but actually I think the way in which this has been put together, it's happy with this. Happy Jez on this poster.
Yeah, I like it too. The only thing I would say, Jango's very, very prominent, isn't he? I know Anakin and Padme are your main 2 on the poster, but then Jango is your 3rd big focal point on there. Do you think they were just trying to appeal to the masses because of Boba Fett?
Yeah, absolutely. Just very much like they still do that now. We've spoken about this with regards to Phasma. Disney do this. They've done this with Phasma, putting a lot of emphasis on new characters, from a secondary antagonist point of view in the movie, and we'll come on to more of that in a minute. But yeah, it's exciting. It is something new. And maybe it was deliberate because they thought, right, the teaser's still going to be kicking around. We don't need to double down on what's been shown in the teaser. Let's bring something new into this.
He just provides that connective tissue, doesn't he, to the old trilogy, and that's clearly why they've used it. It's technically superb, and I would go out on a limb and say it's probably the best of his 3 prequel posters. If you compare them to the Episode 1 and the Revenge of the Sith, I just think the composition just works really nicely.
It is striking, isn't it?
You have done well.
Where's Dooku? I mean, a big player in Episode 2, the fight with Yoda. He is missing.
When asked why Struzan did not include Count Dooku in this poster, Struzan's response was, originally I had designed the poster with him in it, and George decided not to include him in the finished design. Perhaps you'll understand better when Episode 3 comes out. George has his reasons. So that was all that we were given initially from an interview way back when. However, either of you heard about the Dr. Zhivago poster requirement?
No, go on.
Okay, so if you were to look up Dr. Zhivago poster, apparently George wanted the poster to look very much like that. So asked for Dooku to be removed so it was more in keeping with the Dr. Zhivago poster. And when I actually look at that poster, then you look at the main sort of protagonists and you're thinking, right, yeah, there's someone there, right, yeah. Okay, from a balance point of view, it's very similar to this Dr. Zhivago poster, which was a movie which came out in 1965. A historical romance film. Very interesting.
Completely, yeah. The Empire one was Gone with the Wind, and this is Dr. Zhivago. You can see the influence very clearly there.
Dr. Zhivago. By all accounts, George liked that, so wanted to influence the great Drew. I mean, you've got to have some kahunas on you, haven't you? You hire someone like Drew Struzan, and then you give him a pointer. Just remove that.
What this piece of work is, it's a poster for a sweeping epic.
Yeah.
And it balances romance with action, and they both do that. You look at the Dr. Zhivago with the charging army there, and you've got the advancing army of the clones on Drew Struzan's piece as well. So there's a direct correlation.
And also, Dooku was a complicated character. And I think, one of the things George could come up with is, I wanted to remove Dooku so there was the element of surprise. You don't want a poster to be a spoiler. Is Dooku going to have a lightsaber? What colour is it going to be? What's he going to have? So, yeah, there is some Drew Struzan artwork out there, which was the original, and there's some Drew Struzan images still readily available, which have got Dooku in. But as you say, cinematically, in showing the story here, I do think that's an outstanding one. And I don't miss Dooku. As much of a fantastic actor he is.
Plus, there's already a bloke with a beard and a lightsaber on there.
Yeah, in fact, there's 2. Well, 2 lightsabers anyway. But yeah, absolutely.
I must admit, actually, I mean, we've just said that we're quad lovers, but as a poster, I think it works better as the US release.
Yeah, hands down, yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Master Windu, how pleasant of you to join us.
Now, we've taken that poster. I mean, I think it's a thumbs up from all 3 of us, which is brilliant. But let's go over to a bit of the promotional stuff then. Now, Craig, you're going to take us through several promotional areas, starting with some international subway designs.
This is the rollout campaign. This is what we would refer to as the OOH advertising now. So this is the out of home. So this is your billboard and your bus shelters and all that kind of stuff that you see on the high street. And in contrast to the beautiful Struzan one sheet, they adopt a by the numbers approach. It's very contemporary movie advertising, this stuff. So these were conceived by a chap called Scott Ewart, who in his role as the art director of marketing at Lucasfilm would have originated this work that was later overseen in its development through the San Francisco agency Venables, Bell and Partners, who Jez mentioned, the art director and copywriter team who worked on the original teaser. So Scott Ewart, who's now an independent, he showcases some variants of this work at his website, which is ewart.com. You can go and have a look at that. And at the time, around 2001, 2002, Venables Bell would have been a relatively new agency based over in San Francisco, so very handy for Lucasfilm to work with, and basically put this kit of parts together for different territories, who would then adapt them for their local markets. And interestingly, some years have passed. You can go and buy these original images from the stock library, alamy.com, where you can see all of these in their original form in a studio on a grey background. It's quite interesting to just flick through those, and you sort of see how they've been cut out and put onto different backgrounds to create this campaign. So they're effectively character posters, and character posters are something we see all the time now in the promotion of movies. We see them with TV shows, we see them with Book of Boba Fett. The show will be running for a while, and then they'll start to drip out posters just focusing on a single character or a couple of characters. I've been trying to think of this. Their rise as a technique. I remember going to the cinema to see Pulp Fiction, which would have been 1994, and they had like a set, and they were kind of A3 size, and whether they were just made for giveaways or what, or whether they were ever used as promotional items in bought media. But that's sort of the first time I remember seeing this idea of they take a different character and they give them their own poster to promote the film that way. I think the most famous example from the 90s is probably Trainspotting, which is brilliant. They did it so well. Introduced in the cast of characters, you'd see the different posters around the town on bus shelters, and then you'd see them all together on the quad. So that's the principle of these. So if you take them as a set, they've all got a very strong character pose. Sometimes it's just one character, sometimes it's a little grouping. They're all bisected, sort of right on the middle of the poster on an horizon line, with characters in the distance. And you've got a color palette for the good guys. You've got a warm, sort of dusky oranges and browns for the heroes, and then for the villains, you've got sort of moody blues. Just to go through them, so these are international subway posters. So you've got one with Anakin and Padme. You've got one with Obi-Wan and Mace Windu. You've got another where Padme's in the foreground, and you've got Anakin, Obi-Wan, and is that Mace in the background as well? And then you've got a couple of bad guys. You've got Dooku flanked by 2 clones, which is slightly misdirecting. And then you've got another one with Dooku, Django, and Sam Wessel. And you've got Django on his own, and he's backed by the clone Arby. So they're not true representations of scenes in the movies. They are an artistic presentation of these characters in a way that makes a nice set. It'd be interesting to get your thoughts on their merits as posters.
Yeah, I like them. They've got the heroes and the villains themes behind them. It's interesting that when you look at the one which is titled Heroes, where you've got Padme in a bit of a sort of power stance in the front with the 3 Jedi behind her, and then a sort of sea of Jedis behind them, like a wall of Jedis. And then when you look at that versus the villains, before you switch to the villains, look at the background, look at the sort of the atmosphere, look at the sort of mood and the colours in the background, but particularly the clouds, because when you actually then switch to the villains, the clouds are exactly the same. It's just the shade which has changed. So whilst the principal characters are different, what you're looking at is the world is the same, but the characters are different. So you're just looking at this from a different point of view. And that was my thoughts with that. Star Wars, people talk about a certain point of view, but it's actually that skyline, what you're looking at, those exact same conditions are exactly the same for the villains and for the heroes. It's just, is it the mood which has changed? Are you on the good side? Are you on the bad side? It's just an observation there that the clouds and the skyline is identical.
It's a lovely observation. I suspect it's more to do with the economics of providing a set of assets to advertising agencies.
Okay, well, I just think it's a certain point of view.
I like your take on it, Jez. It's really good.
But I like the simplicity of it, because sometimes you look at a poster, you go back to the Drew one, it's busy, but it's still beautiful. And sometimes there can be posters which are just too busy, they're just too hectic. What am I looking at here? I'm looking at a war, I'm looking at an army, it looks like we're going to war, and then, all right, these are the key characters. So I think these posters are perfect for people who don't necessarily understand Star Wars, don't necessarily know Star Wars, but can look at this and look at the mood behind it and go, right, yeah, they're the goodies, they're the baddies, job done. Star Wars is coming. Oh, and it's called Episode 2. And Star Wars is a bigger font than Episode 2. And Attack of the Clones is quite clear at the bottom. So winning in all respects.
Yeah, I think there's a nice geometry to them. Like you say, they're simple, quite arresting. I think that, some of the technical aspects look quite dated now. I think if they were to do them tomorrow, they could be a little bit more sophisticated in their execution. But if you think back to our original brief of, dialing up this romance and selling this film to women and teenage girls, it feels like they're getting a bit more action oriented with these.
Yeah, none of them really depict the love story, do they?
No. So whether it was always a strategic thing to lead with that love story and then bring these out later to just make sure people knew it was an action-packed Star Wars film, or whether they changed tack.
Yeah. I think you're right, they're hedging their bets, aren't they? They're trying to get mass appeal, potentially. Yeah, because it's definitely gone from a Romance in the Stone, sort of classic Gone with the Wind, Dr. Zhivago, to, a bit more out war. Yeah, there are antagonists here, and there are weapons on display and all sorts of stuff like that. So, yeah, definitely putting the wars back in Star Wars.
Although that said, when you look at the Italian bus stop poster, which is actually one of the pieces that's showcased on Scott Hewitt's website, the romantic leads are front and centre again. So, maybe that's an Italian thing. Maybe the Italians are a little bit more romantic.
I like the dark side and the light side element again. I'm not saying now about the clouds. We've already discussed that, and that might have just been slight efficiencies there in time and putting these things together. However, behind the goodies, sunrise, or is it sunset? But there's light, right? There's a light to that, and then you look at the baddies, and they're all dark. And again, simple, isn't it? Light side, dark side.
I think it's a good question. That is it a sunrise or a sunset? I think given what we were talking about with the Coruscant skies when we did the commentary, they're very symbolic of the dying of the Republic, so I'm going sunset.
Yeah, and I think you could put that with a binary sunset rather than binary sunrise, maybe, but not that that's Tatooine, we're talking Geonosis, but there we go. Who knew at the time? Because this was the poster. But yeah, definite use of lights there, which I like. And good posters. I do like them.
Do you remember them from the time? Remember seeing them? I think I remember them on bus stops. I can't remember the Jango Fett one.
Yeah, I remember them. I think the images were used elsewhere as well, weren't they? I'm sure I saw them in magazines and stuff. Yeah,
in the national papers.
Yeah. Now there was also some French banners, which obviously also uses a very similar sort of design, slightly different.
Yeah, slightly different. In fact, these were the only ones which it's believed these were the only ones which came in that size. They came in two pieces, so they were 48 inches by 63 inches each, often known as the two sheet as opposed to the one sheet. Yeah, not a great deal of difference, really. Difference between those and what Craig's already gone about. The Padme one, though, when I was looking through all of them, it was the Padme one with a very strong, I think 21st century term for it is fierce pose of this young lady. Does that bring any other movie to mind, that poster? Okay, because for me it's James Bond. If you think about in the 80s with sort of Roger Moore, very much for your eyes only, sort of power stance, female sort of empowerment, with a firm leg stance there with a weapon. I looked at that and I was like, oh right, yeah, that reminds me of that James Bond movie, For Your Eyes Only. So that's what I got from that. But there was I believe it was the Yoda one, where there was a lot of information on the Yoda and creation visual. I'm not going to try and butcher the language. However, I did put this text into Google Translate. And it did come out slightly strange. So dazzling visual creation was one of them, which would be right, dazzling visual creation. And then the next Google Translate, numerical refinement and narrative maturity. Okay. And then force intact after a quarter of a century. So some really, really weird text. As I was trying to find out some more about that, you've got a logo NRJ at the bottom right of those ones. NRG is, or NRJ was a French radio station, so you'd often find billboards with that logo bottom right. So there we go, the French bus stop banners. Really tall, really crazy two-piece.
That leads us on. Craig, you've already brought this up. I mean, I know we were saying that there's probably loads of different variations and different posters, but the Italian bus stop poster, which there isn't much information on, but it is a little different. Can you take us through that one?
I'm just going to send you a link. Hang on.
Which is very interesting because I'm also going to send you a link. I wonder if we've spotted or thinking the same thing.
Let's see if we're going to send the same links. So this is the guy who used to work at Lucasfilm. This is his website. It's got some alternative ones on it. This is the Mace Windu one on his own. And then there's the one where he's got his arms spread like Rooney.
I like that.
So I've never seen that. So whether these were concepts that were passed on to the agency and adapted or dropped. I mean, this is included in some of the original work that Scott Hewitt's got on his website. And I have to say, it's very, very poor. It's a Photoshop montage of the worst kind. There's little consideration to the composition. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ghostly Dooku in the background, 6 elements that have been arranged with very little consideration to how each element works with the other element. It's very naive and amateurish looking and stands out as not being part of this campaign. It's not got any of the geometry or the simplicity. It's just really bad. Sorry.
Anakin and Padme look more like their kind of poster for Grease 3, aren't they? Him in his leather and her in a slinky outfit.
It's cheap looking, but it's clearly the reference image that Drew Struzan used, you know? So there's nothing wrong with the pose in itself. It's just the way this has been interpreted and presented is just really poor. Sorry, Italy. Your bus stop posters aren't on point.
Just sharing the original Empire Strikes Back Tom Young poster of Vader sort of swooping up there with his leg and all sorts of stuff going on. Then when I went back to that Italian picture, in that sort of top right quarter, I saw the sort of, I don't know, it just looked to me like it was Vader's sort of silhouette, and you got the leg of that sort of armoured vehicle. To me, when I looked at that poster, it gave me slight Empire Strikes Back vibes, top right. That's all I'm saying. And again, am I seeing things? Well, it's just art's what you see yourself, isn't it, really? I guess everyone can interpret these things differently, but that just reminded me of the Empire Strikes Back thing, top right. It's not a patch on Tom's work, but it reminded me of it.
Can't see it.
Okay, fair enough.
So you've got the
rock face, isn't he? The rock to the right kind of looks like a sweeping cape.
Yeah, so almost like a Batman cape type thing. Then when I went to the Empire Strikes Back one, I saw Vader's sort of cape, Darth Vader's helmet, and I saw sort of legs and stuff like that. I just saw that there because there was a lot going on. I was just like, oh, it reminds me of that slightly.
I can see where you're coming from, Jez. I love the way your mind works, how you've seen that. Because, yeah, it's
you're wrong, but yeah.
But yeah, I love that you've spotted it. I mean, you never know. You'll have to get this artist on to ask him. Still not got it, Craig?
No, I'm sorry, I don't see any hidden symbolism, and I think, given the naivety of a lot of the other, I mean, what's Yoda doing? It looks like he's sort of looking up at them on the floor. It's just not very good. Sorry, not feeling it.
Yeah, Yoda's definitely got a please can I have some more vibe going to him there, isn't he, in that one?
Yeah, looks like student work.
Now, this is a bit different then, Craig, because also in 2002, I'm not sure what time period of the year, but the IMAX experience with this movie and obviously a poster to go alongside it. Hit me with your info on this.
Hit you with my info. I mean, it's certainly not part of this campaign. We've got a giant Yoda astride what looks to be the United States. We've got, is that the Seattle Needle and the Golden Gate Bridge? And I don't know, is that the White House? Some landmarks anyway.
Yeah, you've got the New York City skyline in there as well on the right, I believe, yeah.
So you've got Yoda striding across the country to promote the Attack of the Clones appearing in IMAX cinemas in the US. So this was done by a chap called David, and he was an American illustrator, painter, but most known for album sleeves. And he used to work with people like Journey and AC/DC, the Beach Boys, Frank Zappa, done some work with the Beatles, and he passed away recently, 2019. But he's the man responsible for this. Nice piece of work. I like this. This is more in the Drew Struzan camp than it is some of the Photoshoppery we've just been looking at. It's got a vintagey feel. The rendering of it, the colours of it, the typography. It's got an old Hollywood kind of vibe to it. And it's Yoda. Conceptually, IMAX is big. So they made the little guy really big.
Yeah.
So I get it.
Yeah, I like it.
Definite King Kong vibe, isn't it?
Yeah.
The irony of Yoda being King Kong, but yeah, love it.
Yeah, nice. So let's move it on a little bit. I mean, I sent you 5 of the biggest films from 2002 to compare with. We've already spoken about Spider-Man, but it was the year of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, Catch Me If You Can, Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, and Gangs of New York. In comparison, I mean, the Drew Struzan poster we all like. In comparison, how does it mirror other posters of that year? I mean, Lord of the Rings to me is probably the one that sits the closest to it as a design. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I do.
Yeah, the light on the moon and the towers, and then the main cast players.
Yeah, it's busy, but it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. They're busy posters.
Where does it sit for you two, comparable of its era?
I think it compares favourably. I mean, the Drew Struzan is head and shoulders above all of these. You know, compositionally, you've just sort of pulled out the Two Towers. But this is Photoshop. It's not got that life. It's not got that texture. It's not got that richness to it. It's just pixels that have been recomposited on the screen. You know, there's something about Drew Struzan's work that transcends any of that. And that's probably why we still, associate those posters with such good times. I mean, I think famously, Jim Henson would only let him do the Muppets because the Muppets are really hard to photograph because they're bits of foam and feathers. Whereas when Struzan drew them, they came to life. And I think that's a really good illustration as why that type of poster is far more successful than the sort of contemporaries that we've got on display here.
I mean, you look at other stuff. I've just shared with you the Spider-Man 2002. So that came out. That was the first Spider-Man movie. And I imagine you leave the cinema auditorium, you're walking along down, to the way out near the toilets or where popcorn and everything is. Actually, those corridors are quite dark. So sometimes you might want to move away from darker posters. That Spider-Man one, do you know what? That is such a decent poster, in my opinion. It doesn't even say Spider-Man on it because it doesn't need to, because it's kept it simple. You've just got the really bright colours of Spider-Man eye. It just gives the date at the bottom in a particular font, which we will come on to. But that's quite clearly, I think, a timeless one there. I love the Drew one. We've spoken about that. I think that one there is brilliant. Whereas you then look at it amongst others. So I think it was Die Another Day came out that year. Same year, 2002. James Bond, Die Another Day. Yet another Pierce Brosnan one. A lot of chat behind this one. Madonna was in it. She did the soundtrack. A reasonable poster that one came out with. But it wasn't a Drew. It wasn't an iconic thing, which you guys can't picture it now. But you can picture, everyone can now picture the Attack of the Clones poster. But I really liked that Spider-Man one. That was something which really appealed to me.
I guess the odd one out's the Catch Me If You Can, which is a retro style film, and it's got some retro touches to the poster. I mean, the Gangs of New York one is just movie posters by numbers. The big faces at the top.
The Catch Me If You Can one, I think they were just going on there, two sort of main characters who were serious box office property at the time. And actually, that poster was kind of out of focus, wasn't it? I think, given the impression of someone so quick, I can't even get a decent image of them. That's what I got on that poster.
The Harry Potter one, for the size of the franchise, is just forgettable, isn't it? Perhaps it didn't need to have the money pumped into it. It's Harry Potter. People are going to go and see it.
Yeah. It's from that school of very safe movie poster design. I mean, that's saying nothing other than they've grown up a bit from the last one.
Indeed. Well, very interesting. So before we kind of close out the movie posters and the promotional campaign, what do we think overall of the marketing campaign and the choices made? I mean, we've spoken about Struzan at length. We're all on board. We all love the poster. We all love his work. Overall, do you think it was a good campaign? You stated in the start that it was only a 25 million budget. I mean, does anyone know how that's comparable to the budget for something like The Phantom Menace when it comes to marketing?
No, I don't.
Not with hard figures, but I can point at Unsold, Dorling Kindersley, episode 1 books and say that's the contrast. There's a very telling point in that article where it does state that a lot of things went unsold and there was a lot of saturation. So, for them to pull back on this movie and not ram it down people's throats quite so much, I kind of get. Yeah. And I don't think Empire Strikes Back was that different. As the second film in the franchise, it didn't have as much around it. Yeah. And we've talked about that on other shows. So it's that second film in the series thing, isn't it? I think you look back at that original brief that the article outlines. Was it a successful campaign? I'm not sure it was. It's not very memorable, is it? Whether it brought women and teenage girls into the cinemas to watch this amazing love story, I don't know. With 20 years distance, it sort of just feels a little bit, as Jez says, it's not very Star Wars. We can't help but view these things without having the knowledge and experience of the film clown it. So it's difficult to judge. From a marketing design point of view, I don't think it's great.
I just want to go on to a couple of things, because there's a couple of key things which I think we do need to cover before we move on. But Lucasfilm, when they looked at this, I mean, let's face it, in 1999, there hadn't been a Star Wars movie for 16 years, right? So they were going to throw absolutely everything at it. There was a lot of anticipation here, and then once you've got that sort of initial movement, Star Wars was almost like a self-licking lollipop. So they probably felt that they could, tone it down a little bit, save that little bit of money here, save that little bit of money there. You look at so what do we have? 3 different trailers, and we've covered the trailers in depth in our prequel trailer show, which is brilliant, by the way, folks. So, yeah, we've got the Breather trailer, the Forbidden Love teaser, the Clone War trailer, the Mystery teaser trailer, the Across the Stars music video. Don't forget, they had that, and that was going out on sort of not just MTV, but, the Across the Stars music video was out there. But there were 12 TV spots. Now, what TV spot in particular am I going to make reference to now? Because, reacting to other movies and stuff, there was a bit of a sort of tongue-in-cheek TV spot. I don't know if either of you guys can remember that.
No.
When you looked at the TV spots, I think they looked at this and said, oh, look at Spider-Man. Spider-Man's getting a lot of attention right now. Let's have a little bit of fun.
Wow. I've never seen that.
This summer, take the ultimate spin. Spin a web. Even the text, the font. That font is the same font you get on the Spider-Man poster.
Yeah, man.
So, they looked at this and were like, right, yeah, okay, everyone's gone to see the Spider-Man movie. Let's just have some fun with this. It's my take on that. It's just too much of a coincidence, obviously. I don't know the date of when this particular TV spot came out, but I just thought, just really, really taking the mick out of their huge character, Yoda. So there we go. I thought that was a great TV spot. But it was the next element which I wanted to talk to you about. We talk about the campaign, the marketing campaign. So there's one element which, isn't for this show, but the magazines. You look at Time, Empire, Entertainment Weekly, Vanity Fair, all these different magazines with the artwork and the covers. So Attack of the Clones was there. It was in the newsagents. It was all over the place. So we're focusing more on the artwork and the posters for the cinemas. But yeah, you only need to look online to see, film, all the different, Empire covers, Mad, etc., etc. But what else happened in 2002, gents? Stu, I know that this is a massive part of your life. What happened in 2002? Tends to come around every 4 years or so.
A Football World Cup?
Yeah. Is there anything...
2002, Korea, Japan, was it?
Yeah, that's right, Korea, Japan. Now, this is something which I picked up on whilst doing some research for this episode, because I couldn't recall it. And as I said, it's because at the time I was doing all sorts of stuff from a work point of view in 2002, and my mind was probably elsewhere. But there was actually a very, very clever campaign, very clever at the time, which Lucasfilm did as part of their outdoor campaign, which was for the World Cup. Does this ring any bells at all?
No.
Right, okay. So, some of the posters which Craig shared with us earlier on when he went through some of the different ones and some of the foreign ones, there was one in particular with Mace Windu with his arms spread out like Rooney. Is that right? So,
This is correct.
Yes. Okay, so to help launch Episode 2 internationally, an outdoor campaign was created to tease the impending Clone War battle for the first time in any Star Wars film. Fans were going to see over 200 Jedi Knights in action. The good guys boards featured the heroes in the foreground, flanked by a silhouetted wall of Jedi. The bad guy campaign was more ominous in tone and featured the villains in the forefront, surrounded by a wall of clone troopers. Yeah, nothing new there. We've gone through that. In addition, some very specific boards were created to have some fun around the 2002 World Cup football tournament. The advertising combined the outdoor campaign's imagery with clever references that were tailored to football fans in each country. So this information I've got off the original Attack of the Clones DVD, Disc 2, which I watched earlier on, full of loads and loads of info. So the first one, we have our two heroes, Anakin and Obi-Wan Kenobi, with the wall of Jedi behind him. And what's the caption at the bottom?
Force 2.
Yeah, so not 4-4-2, the soccer football term, but Force 4-2. So really subtle imagery and words used on these posters throughout the World Cup campaign. Now, what's the next one?
Girls play on our team.
Yeah, so I mean, okay, girls play on our team. Now I know, times move on and football's changed, but back then, yeah, the girls are on our team. You've got a picture of Padme there in a sort of power stance with the three heroes behind her. And then we've got Mace Windu with his arms spread, as you said earlier on, like Rooney. And it just says, our goalie uses the Force. And so you've got Mace Windu with his arms out like a goalkeeper with his lightsaber. Our goalie uses the Force. There's another one with Yoda. And the caption says, on our pitch, size matters not, which I thought was really cute. What's the next one?
Yodinho. So in 2002, the greatest player on the planet was probably Ronaldinho. Yeah. So it's a play on his name.
Really, really good. And then when it comes to soccer teams or football teams, we've got different groups. And there's usually one group which has got some really, really strong teams in, often referred to as the group of death. And what we have here is a poster with Count Dooku, Jango Fett, and Sam with flanked by a sea of clone troopers, and it just says the other group of death, inverted commas. And so I saw that and just thought, do you know what? That's really clever marketing. The World Cup began on the 31st of May to the 30th of June. So if you just think about, when Attack of the Clones was released, this is just 2 weeks or so later. So, did that affect box office take-ins is another matter. Did the World Cup affect box office take-ins? However, They definitely capitalised on the TV from a World Cup point of view because, yeah, Attack of the Clones was featured in the World Cup 2002. And I only learned about that today.
Me too.
Brilliant, mate.
But there we go. So yeah, two excellent bits there. One was the Spider-Man TV spot, and the other was the World Cup marketing. So actually, on the whole, when you looked at what they did, yeah, they toned it down. They saved some money here, but I think actually, yeah, on reflection, they did all right.
I have good news for you, my lord. The war has begun.
Excellent. Everything is going as planned.
So moving on to a different area of art for Attack of the Clones, and that is the concept art. I mean, we saw it in the originals. Some of the Ralph McQuarrie art is so famous. We're seeing it pop back up in TV shows and reused. But Ralph McQuarrie retired and he opted not to do the prequel work. So George Lucas then turned to Doug Chiang. Now, Craig, I'm coming to you. What can you tell us about Doug Chiang, his history and his career up to this point, his style, his influences, anything you've found about Doug Chiang that you can tell us before we go into concept art?
I think it's best summed up on the Lucasfilm website, actually. So I'm just going to read a bit of that out, give you an overview of Doug and his work. So an Academy Award-winning artist, author and production designer, began his career as a stop-motion animator on the TV series Pee-wee's Playhouse. After attending UCLA Film School, he became a commercial TV director for Rhythm and Hughes, Robert Abel and Associates, and Digital Productions. As creative director for George Lucas's Industrial Light and Magic, he served as visual effects art director on films such as Terminator 2, Ghost, The Mask, Forrest Gump, and Death Becomes Her. Chiang has earned numerous awards, including an Academy Award, 2 BAFTA Awards, a Clio for Design Excellence, and the Art Directors Guild Award for Best Production Design. In 1995, George Lucas personally selected Chiang to serve as the head of Lucasfilm Art Department for 7 years on Star Wars Episodes 1 and 2. He left Lucasfilm in 2002 to form his own 35-person design studio, Iceblink, and worked for Steven Spielberg on War of the Worlds. In 2006, Chiang partnered with the Walt Disney Company and Robert Zemeckis to form Image Movers Digital, a new film studio built on the foundation of Iceblink Studios. Chiang returned to Lucasfilm in 2013 to work on Star Wars The Force Awakens and currently serves as Lucasfilm's Vice President and Executive Creative Director. With over 25 years of Star Wars design expertise, he oversees designs for all new Star Wars franchise developments, including films, theme parks, games, and new media. He recently served as production designer on Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, and Disney's upcoming Pinocchio from director Robert Zemeckis. Currently, Chiang is serving as production designer for the Star Wars live-action series The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, and Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Quite the CV, isn't it?
It's so impressive. I mean, I first saw him and his work with episode 1. I think, I'm forever associating with that Naboo starfighter. He's an incredibly talented guy.
I went to his panel in Chicago, and he's fascinating to listen to as well. Absolutely fascinating bloke.
I think of the Duel of Fates music video because he's quite clearly in that crafting. I think it might have even been Naboo starfighter there. My key images with Doug Chiang are mainly the vehicles, the spaceships, starships, etc., etc. But yeah, going back right from the beginning, I could just picture him now when I hear that music. Him drawing, sketching, is part of that making of episode 1 video. Brilliant, genius.
How pleasant of you to join us.
So I think Chiang's a good all-rounder. He's certainly a worthy successor to McQuarrie, isn't he? He would have had a clear brief from Lucas with the prequels. It was about retro-fitting designs, wasn't it? And going back to certainly like the things like Naboo were all around recalling a more elegant era, less angular, less militaristic.
When McQuarrie was drawing it, the worlds were going to have to be built, weren't they? Where this is nearly all CGI. So you've got a blank canvas of what you can do. His images with the worlds, what are we thinking when it comes to those?
I would say, so if you look at Camino then, so up until this stage, we hadn't really seen oceans and that sort of environment and rain. There had been a sort of a lake, a water scene in episode 1, hadn't there, with the underwater scene. But I think Camino is a great visual.
So who worked on Camino? I've got Doug Chiang and Eric Tiemens. The earliest concepts for what Lucas had called the cloning world imagined a city perched above the stormy sea. Doug Chiang's first production painting was this dramatic approach to Poker City. George described this as a planet consumed by storms, but with very high tech, sophisticated cities built on stilts, Chiang recalled. That image was very appealing since I've always liked the striking image of oil decks in the North Atlantic. When I was painting, I was trying to capture that mood where there's a break in the weather and a shaft of sunlight is highlighting the city, but the rain and the winds are still powerful.
I mean, that is a striking image, isn't it? The one you've just described, Craig, with the rocky sea. Is that the one with like Slave One in like a dot in the air?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, from concept art for Attack of the Clones, it probably is one of the more famous images.
If you put that in the Macquarie portfolio, it's very in keeping.
Yeah.
If you didn't know, you'd kind of go, yeah, there's another one. So there's a lot of homage there, I think.
Yeah, indeed. What about you boys? What are some of your favourite concept pieces he produced for this movie, obviously?
Utter devastation of war on Geonosis. I mean, these are some of the, you look at them and just think back to some of the games which came out around about that time of the Clone Wars. Fundamentally, that's what we're looking for, isn't it? It's the big sort of money shots at the end of the film, isn't it? With all the sort of swooping vehicles coming in and the tanks and the explosions of the fire and that's the war. That's the war which Obi-Wan Kenobi was making reference to back in 1977. Those pieces there. Air, land and sea. So we've spoken about the sea already with Camino. And the air aspect of it with the Naboo starfighters. Those things look fantastic. You could look at that and your eyes could then look at that sort of almost half a flight of starfighters and think, right, yeah, Second World War, let's go back to sort of Spitfires there, going through the clouds. So I've got my sea, got my air and land. You just look at that land war, the land battle going on. So yeah, concept art on all three fronts, on different environments, showing that, big universe and three very, very different areas. We're with world building, aren't we?
We are, and nothing's wasted. So like we see a lot of Macquarie designs coming back into the fore with things like Force Awakens, revisiting some of his work. Doug Chiang is revisiting some of his work from these movies for the TV properties now. So the Annihilator droid that we saw in Book of Boba Fett was originally created for Attack of the Clones. It was dropped because George felt there were too many droids.
Not like here. Here everything is soft and smooth.
I think one of the strong art influences that I get from Attack of the Clones is Art Nouveau. So I bang on a lot about the Art Deco influence of Star Wars. I must mention it every other podcast because it's very much the Flash Gordon world, geometric domes and elegant streamlined shapes. But Art Nouveau is an art movement that I see dotted around this film all the time, especially around Padme. It's a very romantic art movement, so it fits this particular story beautifully. So a quick overview for people who didn't sit through art history lessons. Art Nouveau is an ornamental style of art that was very popular between around 1890 and 1910, so the turn of the century. But it's characterized by very long, sinuous, organic lines, and you see it a lot in architecture, interior design, jewelry, the graphic art of the time, posters and illustrations. And it was a bit of a reaction against some of the mechanization that the Industrial Revolution brought into the world. And it favored things that looked more like they were grown rather than they were machine made. So it's a very sensuous movement, and there's also a very erotic element to it. So I've got a little quote here from the V&A. The turn of the 20th century, perhaps more than any other period in the history of art, was a time of sexual freedom and decadent elegance. Art Nouveau reflected this fascination with sexual and erotic identity, particularly female sexuality, in a world beginning to experience the social, economic and cultural liberation of women. Women became the dominant theme of Art Nouveau, and the erotic potential of the female body was fully exploited to express many different concerns. So you look at this romantic story and this blossoming of this young queen, and you can see Art Nouveau's influence all over this work. There's concept sketches that look like Aubrey Beardsley, and it's something that you see in Padmé's costumes through like the meadow dress. So Jez, the little buns with the gold sort of crochet coverings. That's so Art Nouveau. The wedding dress, the Naboo Lake costume, and it was carried through to Revenge of the Sith. So her funeral scene directly references a pre-Raphaelite painting, and the pre-Raphaelites were an art movement that was very closely linked to Art Nouveau. But there's a painting called Ophelia by John Everett Millais, and it's like it's a direct lift from it. So I think, amidst all this machinery and all of this hardware, you've got these references, and I know it's something that Lucas is into, and I'm sure when his Museum of Narrative Art appears in LA, there'll be lots of this type of stuff on display. I think it's a big influence, but Attack of the Clones is where he really got to explore it. I've got a quote here from Ian McCaig, who was in charge of a lot of the costumes. We wanted costumes that looked like they'd fall off if she sneezed. It was about peeking at things, about intimacy. So the costume design and a lot of those touch points were all around,
I get that. As you say, by the lake, there wasn't much to that. You're right. You're absolutely right. There was also there was a sort of evening scene with Padmé and Anakin, and she was wearing something quite sort of. There wasn't a great deal to it, but it was leather as well. So that's gone completely against what you were saying with regards to the lacy elements of Art Nouveau.
It's an interesting contrast against all of the other sci-fi stuff going on, and I know it's something that Lucas is a fan of, as I say, and it's a very visual representation of a romantic mood, a romantic movement. I think there's so much to the art of a movie. When we look at things like a marketing campaign, it's very tangible.
Yeah.
It's against a brief. I mean, you can take any one of those characters, any one of those ships, any one of those environments, and you could talk about that for half an hour. I think one of the standout bits is Dooku, isn't it? And how Dooku was originally a woman, then became an old woman, and ultimately the designs for Dooku later became Ventress when it was cast as
Christopher Lee.
Christopher Lee, there you go.
Lord Tyrannus, you have done well.
So, Craig, where is the best place for people to look at concept art then? I can easily find posters and stuff. You look at concept art and it's a little bit more difficult to find out what is true concept art, and other stuff just gets slipped in there in the mix. Is there a good source?
Well, I have in front of me the art of Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones, written by Mark Cotter-Vaz.
It's a fantastic book if you're into your art, even if this isn't your favourite film. These books are still fantastic reference and interesting to flick through. We do have a copy of this book to give away. Over the next 48 hours after this show, it will be announced who is getting that book. So stick around at the end and we will tell you how you can be in with a chance of picking that book up. Nothing too massive now. I mean, with all big licenses, Star Wars in particular, you get some terrific fan art and other licensed pieces for, we see licensed work at Celebration. There's often some fantastic artwork down the Artist Alley. I picked out a couple of pieces which I thought you boys could just describe and see a few different people's takes, and then we'll have a look if you came up with anything else. So, Jez, the first piece of art. What are you thinking? Yes. Who's the artist?
Devon Schofler the second. So this is a really, really pure and simple image, which to me really aesthetically pleasing. You've got the Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones logo at the bottom. You've got Jango Fett's helmet with his viewfinder just elevated as you would find it normally. On the left-hand side of the poster, as you look at it, it's just quite clearly Jango Fett's helmet, but the right hand is then blended into lots of images which you would find and associate with Attack of the Clones. So you've got Yoda, Mace Windu, Anakin, Padmé, you've got Obi-Wan, you've got Count Dooku, you've got the bounty hunters, and you've got the clones. Plus, at the bottom, you've got Acklay being sort of fought by Obi-Wan Kenobi. And then in the background, just behind the helmet and elevated above, you've got a Camino scene with Slave One just flying over the water. I've said a lot there, but actually it's quite a simple thing because it's a helmet against a backdrop. I think it's really nice and simple to me. The helmet itself, you're seeing the sort of stainless steel finish of it with the blue accents, and then you've got the darker characters on the right hand side. But all in all, it's probably one of the lighter posters that we see. It's fine on its own. It comes as part of a set, if you like, so you can get an episode 1 poster to go with it and the episode 3, so you could have ordered those all together or just have this one as an individual. The episode 1 being Darth Maul and the episode 3 one being General Grievous. But out of the 3, I think this one's really, really nice. What do you guys think of this? This really appeals to me.
I quite like it. It's walking a fine line between those minimalist interpretations and a busy montage. I think the layout is really nice. The way it's constructed around the helmet, I think it just gets a little bit cut and paste on the right side of the helmet. It's not badly done, but it's the same pictures I've seen several times before, just arranged in a different way. It's pretty nice.
Yes. I'm not sure they need the Camino bit at the top. I think it would look cleaner.
Right. Yeah,
with just the top of the helmet.
Yeah, 100% agree with you on that.
Are they all like that with the other two as well?
The Darth Maul one, as you could expect, is darker with red, but just above it, you kind of lose the horns because you've got this element just above showing the starships, the spaceships.
Yeah, I think they maybe make a little bit too overcomplicate the picture with those bits on there.
And the General Grievous one has got a green tint to it, but again, it's got something above. But there is a simplicity to it, but I just think, without that backdrop, that would be the best thing. But I agree with you, Craig, what you're saying. There is a lot in there. It is a bit cut and paste. The only thing you haven't necessarily seen before like that is the silhouette of the creature being hit by Obi-Wan at the bottom, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Not bad though. Like it.
Yeah. Bit different.
You have done well.
Craig, let's move on.
Okay, so we're looking at a print called No Mistakes this time by Danny Haas, and it's an over-the-shoulder shot of Jango Fett looking out onto the Coruscant nightscape and witnessing the chase of Zam Wesell by Anakin and Obi-Wan. It's a very contemporary vector-style interpretation. So again, quite graphic, block colours, bold shapes. And when I say bold colours, like bright colours, it's actually quite eye-popping, and it's a lot of yellow and red in Django's outfit, which is we know to be silver and blue. So a little bit of artistic license, but quite a nice image. I don't mind it. I don't think it's something I'd go out and spend $45 on and put on my wall, but for that kind of thing, I think it has an appeal.
Exactly that. It has an appeal. Not my thing. Definitely worthy of being a Star Wars Celebration recipient or something which was available on Darking. Yeah.
I think it'd make a nice back to a playing card.
It's got that feel, hasn't it? We've looked at the Theory 11 ones before, and it's got a nod to that, hasn't it?
Worthy of recognition in the archives of the Jedi Order.
Okay, Jez, over to a picture by Ollie Boyd.
Yeah, Ollie Boyd. So this is Star Wars Attack of the Clones, minimal art style. This has got sort of Vietnam War thrown through it, really. It looks like a cross between Apocalypse Now, Empire of the Sun, and Far From Vietnam, I would say. It's orange and black, using shadows, using silhouettes. Very clever use of dropship and a sun sort of lens flare, which also has got the accents of a clone trooper helmet perfectly done. I think this is really, really I think it's just quite cool. I think it's really clever use of shadowing and silhouettes, and I would say simple but probably almost certainly really not simple to put together, but just a very good idea. I think the detailing on the helmet, what they've done there with that ship and the sun, I think is very clever.
Now, I don't know if you noticed, but they've done, this artist has done one of these for every Star Wars film going, including the holiday special.
Now you've seen that and on quick searches and stuff, I can see, yeah, Force Awakens, bits and pieces, yeah, I do like that. Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, I think these are good. The C-3PO one is the one you see a lot, isn't it? And the Boba Fett where Cloud Six forms the T-shape of his visor. I like these. I do like these. They exemplify fan art. You know, there's something that would not have a place in a traditional marketing campaign for a movie or a book, but they exist just for the beauty of it. And they are a beautiful set.
Everything is going as planned.
What I'm going to do now is I'm going to drop something in which I saw at Star Wars Celebration Chicago. Craig, you would have seen it as well. Massive fan of Star Wars Celebration Chicago art show, and I'm actually looking forward to finding out. It's going to be very soon because all artwork had to be submitted at the end of March for the forthcoming show at Anaheim. So you know, by the time this is released, Celebration is just moments away. And you know, we'll already know what artwork there is. We might have to have a follow-up to this show because I know that there is absolutely 100% going to be more homages to Attack of the Clones this year's. But here's something which I'd like to share with you. Zoltan Simon. It's called Ill-Starred Love, The Good in Him. It's a really beautiful image, black and white image at the side of Padme. But then when you look again closer, what you've got is Darth Vader's mask. It is built up around her face like a cracked glass coffin, and it says, from the opposite point of view, if we try to see it through Vader's mask, we can see the love and good in him, the good that never left him. Zoltan goes on to say, Star Wars has so many strong motifs and archetypes. I always find inspiration in them. The idea of this image came into my mind when I was standing in a beautiful garden at Lake Como last September at the shooting location of the wedding scene from Attack of the Clones. The picture catches the dark and an inevitable future in a beautiful and happy moment. Darth Vader's mask building up like a cracked glass coffin around Padme's face. From the opposite point of view, if we try and see through the Vader's mask, we can see the love and good in him, the good that never left him. I just think that's a really, really clever and really beautiful picture, but then just it's that real subtlety of the glass coffin of Vader's mask around the face. You guys seen that one before? I think it sold out very quickly.
I have, from when we discussed it in the past, but yeah, it is a good image.
I remember it from the show. Yeah, it stands out, doesn't it, for being very different.
Yeah,
you know, you see a lot of similar styles repeated in Artist Alley. You know, there are certain ways to present these concepts and these characters. This is so unusual. It really stands out.
Worthy of recognition in the archives of the Jedi Order.
So that was just what I wanted to share with you. I'm interested to see what Craig's going to bring.
So I'm going to send you a few things. I'm going to send you over a couple to start with that just underline what I was saying earlier about this Art Nouveau influence. So if you look at that first one there by an artist called Julia Harrison, it's a rendering of Padme, but it's done in this very Art Nouveau style. So the image there on the right is Alphonse Mucha, who was a artist of the time, graphic artist of the time. And you can sort of see, can't you, just looking at the image, how much influence has been taken from that movement. And then there's another one there by Joshua Middleton, which was a commissioned piece, which again uses that very floral framing device. It looks like a turn of the century piece of work. So for such a naff scene in the movie, it's such a beautiful image.
But you know what, that outfit, I've seen people cosplay so well as well. You know, you only have to look at Celebration to look at other people's point of view and see what people love. And now I see that, I get that.
So there's a lot of that stuff around. If you look at sort of fan art from that movie, a lot of people taking influence from that style. I'm going to send you something by way of marked contrast now.
Oh yeah, the Duran Duran covers. I've never seen that.
You're getting this. So this is work by an artist called Craig Drake, and you can see that his influence is very much an artist called Patrick Nagel. who is most famous for the Duran Duran Rio cover. So these very stylized 1980s graphic renderings. There's a lot of work in, genre movies and TV. Great artists, really striking imagery. I do like these.
Yeah, they're good. I like those.
It's the subtleties of the costume itself, the sort of the armband. The one where she's got sort of hair in a plait, that's the leatherish outfit which I had mentioned about the evening scene. But this one clearly with the armband and that type of pistol, that's when you think, that's not just any old lady, that's Padme. And yeah, makes sense. Don't need anything else in there, just the subtle cues. Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah, so I'm just going to send you a couple more. We've got the Eric Tan piece, and we talked about Eric Tan when we looked at some of the tiki collaborations he was doing with Geeky Tikis. So a very long, thin, predominantly black and yellow and grey vector style image of the clones and the dropship, Battle of Geonosis. Really nice, and again, part of a set that all work beautifully together.
I like that. That is quite a popular style now, the sort of long, not your standard one sheet or quad dimensions. There's a lot of love now for some of these sort of long, 300 by 900s or what have you. The Tween does, Malcolm Tween does long landscape ones, whereas this is long tall portrait, and our very own Mark Daniels does a lot of the long tall portrait ones. And I've got a lot of time for them, and I think you can do a lot from a framing point of view with those as well.
Yeah, it's a nice format. It makes for some interesting work. And the last one there, I was desperate to find something that was like an officially licensed product, and I believe this is. So the Little Golden Books, who've done very cute interpretations of the stories from the films. I just really like this as a piece of work. I think it's fun and it's colourful, and it's just a nice composition.
You have ticked lots of boxes there tonight, haven't you, Craig? You've got something for everyone, including all the kids.
Indeed, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because you think of Attack of the Clones and where it's held in people's regard. It's just interesting to dig around some of the fan art and some of the other stuff that's been produced under the broad topic of the art of Attack of the Clones. And it is interesting what you throw up, and there's some really good examples that we've showcased here, and implore people to go and look at the enhanced versions where you can see all this. But it's not all been good. For every nice piece, I've found something awful, and some of it has been legit Lucasfilm product. The novelization artwork on the cover of those is pretty poor, both the hardback and the reissue and the junior one. It's a real mixed bag.
Anything else you've seen art-wise?
What did I go through earlier on? I went through Gus and Duncan's Comprehensive Guide to Star Wars Collectibles, where there's loads of stuff about postcards, posters, lobby cards, premium posters, all sorts of stuff. So I've gone through all the different sections. And what did I see? What was different and what did I quite like? There are a couple of clever ones. There's one, it's Anakin and Padme preparing to kiss as they're just about to go out to their doom. So there's a Connections one, which is Anakin and Padme sort of behind each other, but in the foreground you've got their twins, grown up, Luke and Leia. So I just thought that they were interesting takes on the artwork that I haven't seen before. But the one of Anakin and Padme just about to kiss, they're from Thailand, and I thought they were quite nice. And then the PCO 1209 is United States. So that was a US postcard which has got Padme and Anakin, but then with a grown-up Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia just in the foreground. Connections, that's what that one's called. And having gone through the how many thousands and thousands of items in the Gus and Duncan's book there, that's the best I came up with. Cool. What did you find, Craig?
All I wanted to do, and I'm not going to dwell on this at all because it's tangentially linked to what we've been talking about, but there's a great article on a website called Cinematic Slant, and it's called Revisiting the HoloNet's Role in the Marketing of Attack of the Clones. So I don't know if anybody remembers this, but on StarWars.com, they ran an in-universe newsfeed that updated readers with what had been going on in the galaxy, and it was accompanied by visuals and fake articles that talked about the politics, talked about the movers and shakers on the galactic stage, but also interspersed with sort of gossipy things. And it was all created to add texture and build hype for the movie. So it's a great little article, cinematic.slant.com. And it's an article called Revisiting the Holonet's Role in the Marketing of the Attack of the Clones, which I urge people to just go and check out, because I think it's a forgotten bit of this story, and it's quite interesting what they were trying to do with that.
Yeah, they're just little tidbits of what was going on in elections and various bits and pieces, wasn't it? Just all to do with Palpatine and... Completely.
Yeah. So the Holonet had been established in the expanded universe as, as the news source for this world. And this was a way of creating, immersing people. And people do it now all the time. You get websites for movies that are in universe, continuing the story. But this is one of the early examples that I can recall. So, alongside those posters that perhaps weren't hitting the mark from a design or a conceptual point of view, they were doing some interesting things over at Lucasfilm to promote this movie.
Yeah, it's not breaking the fourth wall. But it's almost like that sort of catch-up reminder you get at the beginning of The Walking Dead about what happened on the episode before. It is, and it's not going to hit everyone, is it? I mean, there would have been 90% of people wouldn't have known about that. But you're just different markets trying to get different people. On reflection, you might have thought, oh no, they didn't do a very good job of that. Maybe when we came to record this show, but actually looking back now at what we've covered, they had the teaser, and as you said, George was looking to enter a different market to bring others and new audiences in, and that's why they were going along that avenue. But then coming out with the Drew, I want an absolute banker. Right, we're going to get Drew to do the poster. Right, so here's the teaser. Now we've got Drew doing the poster. Now we've got these different trailers coming in, which we've already discovered. Right, Spider-Man's knocking out the park. Let's do a funny Spider-Man TV spot, bringing that in. World Cup, let's capitalise on that. Let's get it out there, mass market. Look at the whole planet who's going to be watching the World Cup. Doing these different things. And as you said with the Holonet, they are actually really, really dominating, weren't they? There was a lot. We say it was scaled back, but they covered a lot of bases.
Yeah.
I think it's been some very positive comments about the old artwork tonight, don't you?
Yeah, totally, 100%.
I think anyone that listens to the commentary with us and maybe the prologue show, they might have thought we were quite harsh on Attack of the Clones. But like everything in Star Wars, even when the product doesn't deliver, there is always good stuff to come out of it. And just on its own, that Drew Struzan poster is an exceptional piece. And I'm sure we'll see other stuff as we go on through this month. Boys, what's your favourite piece from the evening? Let's put Drew Struzan aside. We know that poster was brilliant. Out of all the other artwork you've seen, what would be your standout piece?
I think just, doing this show has prompted me to get a dusty book off the shelf that I haven't picked up and flicked through in many years, and just revisiting some of that concept work from Attack of the Clones. You realise just the talent that's in these movies, and particularly some of those character designs, Ventress, some of Padme's work. It's brilliant. So that's been the highlight for me, is getting that book back out. So, I thank you for that, Stuart, in putting this show together.
Yeah, nice.
I loved looking at the Ollie Moss stuff. I thought some of those posters were great. Drew Struzan was brilliant. But again, doing this has really opened my eyes more. I'm going back to episode 2 more and more. I've really enjoyed looking at this. Cracking out that DVD for the first time in ages, because I haven't needed to, because I've had the Blu-ray, because we've got Disney Plus. But the information on that DVD, the DVD which came out in November 2002, 6 hours worth of extra stuff, documentaries in bits and pieces, finding out about the World Cup. We've got so much information, which is at risk in some respects of being lost if we just refer to things which are available to us on Disney Plus. So it's been really, really interesting. I'm at this stage, nearly halfway through recording this month's worth of stuff. I'm loving episode 2 more and more and more. In fact, now half of my eBay watch list is episode 2 stuff. It's it's weird, isn't it? I'm loving what's happening. I'm becoming more of an episode 2 fan. Genuinely am.
Well, we did say this might happen. The nostalgia might kick in for this movie. And, I am looking forward to the epilogue show at the end of the month to see if it has affected us all. I mean, we're still in the first half of the month. We've got plenty more to come. But it'd be certainly interesting to see where we're all at come the end of this month. I'm enjoying that, Jez. I mean, the artwork from Chicago, get that image.
Yeah, I mean, that is lovely. It's unavailable. This would have sold out straight away. There was only 250 of them made. Ill-Starred Love by Zoltan Simon.
Yeah, get it off eBay at some point.
This party's over.
Right, so social media, lots going on this month, whereas we keep on celebrating this amazing film. I'm gonna say it. It might be bottom of the pile for some of us, but we are enjoying it. Now, go and check out our social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for Generation Skywalker. Head over to We Are Generation Skywalker Facebook page for discussion, and there will be chances to win all sorts of items over the course of the month related to Attack of the Clones. Be sure to go and check out our YouTube channel. Nearly all of the shows are getting enhanced. You can watch the commentary over there and watch along with us, make it a bit more enjoyable and see what we say. And if you agree with our views, head over to www.generationskywalker.com. You'll find links to everything, including blogs and shows that aren't to do with Attack of the Clones. And of course, you can find our podcasts on any podcast platform there is. Now, we did allude during the show that we do have a copy of The Art of Attack of the Clones. Craig, the author, Mark Vaz Cotter, is it?
Close, Mark Cotter Vaz.
I'm Yoda. So I just shuffle the words around a bit. But we do have that book up for grabs. So head over to We Are Generation Skywalker. There'll be a post on there, and that will explain what you need to do to get into the prize draw. The prize draw will probably be drawn just 2-3 days after this show goes out, because like I said, there will be a few prizes over the course of the month relating to Attack of the Clones. So go and check that out, be in the hat, have a chance of winning that fantastic book. So it is goodbye from Craig.
Cheerio.
It's goodbye from Jez.
See you next time.
And it is goodbye from me, and we are Generation Skywalker.